ARICAT, the proven fact on how the pyramids were built. At last, a logical explanation of how the ancient Egyptians built the pyramids. An astounding discovery reveals they were not built by 200,000 workers or by aliens from outer space. However, recent scientific studies discovered the presence of artificial elements in pyramid stones. They found traces of a chemical reaction, more precisely, a geosynthesis, namely, the manufacture of minerals with chemistry. Thus, Egyptians built the pyramids using man-made stone, which looked exactly the same as natural rocks. Limestone blocks were cast in place. French scientist, Professor Joseph Davidovits, chemist, geopolymers and ancient cement expert, solved the enigma. He sensed the truth when he found air bubbles and fibers trapped inside Great Pyramid's limestone. He discovered fossil shells in disarray, jumbled, not in normal sedimentary horizontal layers. He confirmed the existence of the lost technology in the artisan steel, currently found in the Louvre Museum. And also with enigmatic stone vessels found in the labyrinth under the Saqqara Pyramid. The mystery was finally solved when he decoded hieroglyphs found in an ancient stele at Sehel Island, near Aswan, in the midst of the River Nile. It contains the chemical formula used by High Priest Imhotep to make the stones of the first pyramid in history, the Step Pyramid at Saqqara. Using the same formula and the same ARICAT stone technology, Professor Davidovits replicated several artificial limestone blocks in his laboratory at Saint-Quentin, near Paris. They looked exactly the same as natural limestone. The great Imhotep, the alchemist and master architect of Pharaoh Djoser, made the stone blocks and built the first pyramid at Saqqara. He invented the ARICAT stone technology, and here's how. Nearby the pyramids, pools were dug in the soft limestone along the Nile, forming basins for producing limestone concrete. Workers began disaggregating the crumbly rock with water coming from the River Nile. They flooded the canals to form a mud with clay. Next, sodium carbonate, called natron salt, was poured in. This salt is a very reactive substance. It is mixed with ash, rich in calcium oxide from burnt palm trees. When added to water, the resulting mixture forms caustic soda, which will trigger off a powerful chemical reaction. Then, workers added more limestone rubble and another salt, magnesium chloride, named carnallite, to lower the pH. After evaporation of water, the concrete is now ready. The limestone paste is taken in buckets, then carried to the pyramids. Archaeological digs discovered that only 2,500 people were working on site. In fact, the reagglomerated stone theory doesn't need more workforce. By means of wooden ramps and the tiers already set, men carried each bucket and poured its content into molds. Then, limestone concrete is compacted and left to harden. Wooden molds had been prepared. These molds had been smeared with oil to ease the release of the block once hardened. The mixture was rammed into the molds as in the making of the packed earth called pisé, becoming a strong and dense reagglomerated limestone. The workers stood inside the mold, pounding the wet material with a wooden pestle, packing it against a contiguous block already made, thus producing a close fit. That's how Imhotep's successors made millions of blocks for Cheops' pyramid, one of the seventh wonder of the ancient world. The ARICAT technology uncovers a logical, simple, and proven solution to the mystery that has puzzled man for centuries, shedding light on how the pyramids were really built.
For example, we have huge blocks that have strange lift lines, layers that do not fit with geological layers. Then we see a block, a piece of stone, here practically 30 centimeters long, that is inside another limestone block. Nature is not capable of doing this. And if we look at other blocks, at the Pyramid of Chifren on the south side, then you see huge blocks that have curved joints and very strange curved joints. This is impossible to get with the regular carving tools and with the regular way of making the blocks as it is presented by Egyptology. In Giza, then we see that the natural limestone is made of fossil shells that are horizontally aligned, this is quite obvious for natural nummulitic limestone. And if we look at the pyramid blocks, we have these shells in disarray, which is not very oftenly found in natural limestone. So there is a big difference between the natural geological limestone and other pyramid blocks. And we decided to make 15 tons of pyramid stones, and since it was an experiment, I choose to vary the various parameters that are involved in the making of the blocks, namely the amount of water, the amount of clay that we had to add to the limestone, because it did not have it. It was inherent in the Giza limestone, but here in the French limestone we did not have the clay, so we added the Carnottic clay, 4%, and the chemistry, which are the limestone and the likes. So we changed the amount of the elements in the various blocks that we made, and we will show you a small video of this experimentation where we produced 15 tons of reagglomerated limestone.
In September of 2002, our Geopolymer Institute crew cast massive imitation pyramid blocks. Or perhaps we should say genuine pyramid blocks. We used the same kind of earthen ingredients available to the ancient Egyptians 4,500 years ago. These massive blocks have the same chemical makeup and appearance as blocks of the Great Pyramid. The limestone we used consists of fossil shells called nummilites, like those in the Giza bedrock. Like in Giza, our French limestone is so loosely bound it doesn't require crushing. But unlike in Giza, it contains no kaolin clay. We heap the cement additives, lime, natron and kaolin clay, near the limestone.
The two components will react in the water and build in situ geological glue, which will then yield the hard geopolymeric agglomerated limestone.
We start making the cement by mixing sodium carbonate, found in Egyptian natron, and lime in 500 liters of water. We then add the kaolin, inherent to Giza limestone, and stir the mix with a wooden tool. We dump 1 ton of limestone rubble into the basin and mix it with the cement. Several days later, water has evaporated from the basin, so we remove the disaggregated limestone for making the block. Inspecting the mixture, 95% limestone aggregates and only 5% rock-making binder. Between 12 and 17% of water give it the consistency of wet sand. One squeezes the mixture with his hand and it keeps its shape. This batch will quickly gain strength. We do all of the work manually, forming a human chain carrying buckets from the mixing area to the mold. We pour the limestone concrete mixture in a mold and pack it down with a tool called a rammer. Compacting the material requires little effort. The packing operation encourages cohesion and the denser mixture takes on high strength from the initial curing phase. When the climate is warm and beautiful, our crew rapidly produces a re-agglomerated limestone that proved strong, dense, and true to the plant's size and shape. The mold consists of small wooden boards, which can be reused many times for making other blocks. In this ideal weather, the whole process runs smoothly and is very simple. We remove the mold 4 hours later. The synthetic limestone looks like a natural stone. We observe no trace of wood grain. 4 blocks have already been made. Joseph Davidovits presents them. The 2 large blocks weighing up to 4.5 tons, containing most water, have given smoother surfaces. The 2 small blocks weighing up to 1.3 tons, the least wet, take on rougher surfaces.
When you look at the stones of the pyramid, this is what you see. You see either smooth blocks or very crude blocks. And we have replicated all these surfaces just by varying the amount of water, which depends on the climate, which depends on the weather.
Joints between blocks are also perfect. It will take 3 months for the stones to fully cure because of the climate of northern France. In 4,000 years, will future archaeologists insist that our imitation pyramid stones are natural limestone? We looked at the stones 1 year later. This is how it looked like when we reopened the molds and the shelters. You remember in the video we have been claiming that we cannot see the joints between the stones. Well, 1 year later we have the joints, and this is obvious because each block during hardening is shrinking. The shrinkage is very small, but it is sufficient to produce a joint between the blocks, and each joint in fact is the mirror of the other. They are perfect and they are exactly in the same shape as what we see on the pyramid site. But above it, you see that the stone above the 2 others, we don't see practically any joint, and we feared that the blocks would be glued together. This is what people are always telling to us. Well, if you are doing this type of experiment, your stones will glue to the other one. We had to destroy what we had manufactured, and during the crushing, and we were capable of, in fact, separating very easily the upper block with those from the bottom, and we saw that they were absolutely not adhering to one to each other, but that in fact the surface of each blocks were exactly fitting with the surface of the other one. And this is also one of a very specific feature of the pyramid blocks. The blocks on the horizontal layer are absolutely fitting to one to each other without any space in between.
So we can claim that our experimentation was very fruitful and it provided good knowledge into the practical feasibility of the system. Just after, what we have is the starting of making a small pyramid in carved stone. And if you want to have pyramids made of carved stone, this is what we have. We have here the pyramids of Userkaf, 2460 BC, which is just after the pyramid of Gizeh. It is just a heap of small stones that have been taken from the environment. And if you compare it with the first one, you see this one is totally destroyed and this one is still there. So this is a big difference between a building made out of agglomerated stone and a small building made out of carved stone. So if you want pyramids made of carved stone, this is what you have, and you see that it is no longer this very powerful and very important technology that had been used previously. And if we continue to look at the Egyptian civilization, we are discovering something which is really very strange. So we started with mud bricks that were used in the enclosures during the second dynasty. They did not have stone tools, so it is obvious that they used mud bricks. Then it was the invention of the first limestone bricks by agglomeration. The technology improved into bigger and bigger and bigger blocks, limestone blocks. And then suddenly, 800 years later, they had the bronze tools to cut their stone. No, they returned to pyramids made of mud brick. So this is something that Egyptology is not capable of explaining. It is something that geopolymeric technology is capable of explaining, essentially because here we had a stop of the use of this technology to make stone, and they turned back to mud because mud bricks is also the replica of reincarnation in the materials that belongs to the Khnum divinity. Well, what about the Cheops pyramid? You have seen I am talking about the pyramids and I don't talk about Cheops. Strange. Well, if we look at Cheops, this is what we have. We have the core, this is the mass, more than 2 million tons, is made of limestone, re-agglomerated limestone. But here in inner, there is one exception. It is made of granite. It is made of carved stone. Why? Cheops, you know, is a Khnum Khufu. Well, it is agglomerated stone. However, Pharaoh is the king of the two countries. And it is obvious for me that the pyramids must be the representation of Egypt, must represent northern country and the southern part of Egypt. Which means we must have a replication of agglomerated stone for the northern part of Egypt, and in the south, natural granite, that is the carving technology. So we have agglomerated limestone for the core, and the king chamber is made of split granite that is dressed. Split granite, not carved granite. And I have to figure that it have been two independent building sites that were not connected between each other, and that those who were involved in the erecting of the natural granite slabs, these are huge, were using a temporary ramp that was located on the south side of the pyramid, on the opposite of the Grand Gallery. So we had two separated technological work site that were working independently. For Chiefren, same problem. The core is made of agglomerated stone, but this time they used the granite in a very more easily way. It was only for the casing of the first and second steps, that is made of split granite, like this one. These are blocks of granite that are split into two and are incorporated into the natural layer, the natural step. What about Mykerinos? Mykerinos has a core made of agglomerated limestone, and the first steps were recovered with a casing already also made of split granite, not dressed. We are not alone. We have several institutions that officially are claiming that they support and they endorse the agglomerated limestone theory. Very famous institutions, and they are supporting us. And in fact, if we look at the world connection of the Institute Geopolymer, of the Geopolymer Institute, it is obvious that there are several institutions in the world that are agreeing with this theory of the pyramids being made of reagglomerated limestone. You'll find additional information in my recent book, They Built the Pyramids, and also in the book Geopolymer Chemistry and Applications.